What the heck? That's one ugly bride. I'd love to see what her parents look like. These were the first words my in-laws said upon seeing my face, making me involuntarily exclaim, huh? I had a bad feeling about visiting my in-laws' house from the start. I pretended not to notice the slim chances that David's parents would be reasonable people, and I had come this far. But hearing these insulting words about me now, I'm reminded how foolish I was. Well, you see it, right? I was shocked too when I first met her. She said she felt complex about her looks, but I never imagined it'd be this bad. Even David said something unbelievable. Could it be that David had been mocking my appearance from the beginning? Thinking this, I felt so frustrated I could scream. There's no way I can go through with marrying David without saying something. I need to change this situation somehow. With determination in my heart, I quietly slipped my hand into my pocket, ready to take action. My name is Linda Miller. I'm 30 years old and work as a public relations officer at a major food company. Honestly, the path to get here wasn't easy. I almost gave up many times, but I finally made it. Even now, thinking back makes me tear up. Ever since I was little, I've been called ugly by my classmates. With a small nose, single eyelids, thick lips, and freckles all over my cheeks, I'm far from being called beautiful. Now, it may seem like a minor thing in life. But society still judges people by their looks, and it was only natural that I developed a complex about my appearance. During school, I grew my bangs long to avoid eye contact and walked around looking down all the time. The dark aura I emitted made it understandable why my classmates used me as their stress relief. Being called ugly or gloomy was the lesser of the evils. At worst, my shoes were hidden or my gym clothes were torn to pieces, so it's no wonder my spirit was crushed. In high school, I decided to change myself and studied relentlessly. Even though I was still bad-mouthed in high school, I didn't care and kept my focus forward. Thanks to that, I got into a top private university and landed a job at a well-known food manufacturer that everyone knows. It's been 2 years since I started working in the PR department. I've recently started using a dating app and have a date with a man this weekend. What kind of man will he be? How will he react to my looks? It's a bit scary, but if possible, I'd like to try dating too. Until now, I've lived thinking I could never date because of my complex about my appearance. But maybe this time, I can move forward. That's why I decided to take this step. The weekend I had arranged to meet a man through a dating app had arrived. I dressed up as best as I could, applying my makeup more meticulously than usual. I spotted the man I was supposed to meet at our rendezvous point and mustered the courage to approach him. His name on the app was David, so I tentatively asked, "Are you David?" "Oh, are you Linda?" "Nice to meet you, I'm David." David recognized me and greeted me with a big smile. "Nice to meet you, please take care of me." First and foremost, I was relieved that David didn't recoil at my appearance, so his smile was very comforting. "I've got a reservation at a restaurant, shall we go?" David, seemingly accustomed to such meetings, led the way to the restaurant with confidence and without any hesitation. I was still nervous about meeting someone new, and I followed David, watching his back as we walked. At the restaurant, we each ordered something we liked. My real name is David Taylor. I work as the sales director, Chain Corporation, an auto parts manufacturer. Oh, and I'm the sales director at this young age because my dad is the president. David casually mentioned something incredible during his introduction. Just hearing the word auto parts manufacturer made my heart skip a beat. Since Chain Corporation is a well-known company to anyone. That the president of Chain Corporation was David's father was significant. His app profile mentioned his income, but I hadn't imagined he was the sales director at Chain Corporation. Wow, the sales director at the famous Chain Corporation? That's impressive. My name is Linda Miller, and I work in public relations at New Wave Company, a food company. When I introduced myself similarly, David reacted with exaggerated surprise. "Really? Well, that's impressive too." I wasn't sure how genuine he was, but being praised for the position I worked hard to achieve was genuinely pleasing. No, I'm nothing special. You're more impressive. When I praised David, he smiled happily again. After that, we talked a lot about our hobbies and had a great time. David was the kind of person who made even the dullest stories enjoyable, nodding exaggeratedly and asking questions, making it easy to talk to him. He didn't seem put off by my appearance at all. After talking for about an hour, I found myself thinking that I might be able to, perhaps, move forward with him. Actually, I have always been complex about my looks. As the atmosphere warmed up, I decided to share my complex with David. David looked at me intently and then expressed genuine curiosity. Is that so? I don't think you need to feel that way. You seem to be working hard on yourself. Oh, sorry if that sounded presumptuous. David's words eased into my heart and melted it. No, thank you. I felt my heart warming up. I felt confident that I could make it work with David. Acting on intuition, I confessed to David on our second date. David, not expecting me to make the first move, initially looked surprised but then said shyly, I was about to say the same, which was very endearing. Our relationship seemed to progress smoothly. David continued to treat me kindly even after we started dating. I realized that I had a habit of unconsciously bragging about my wealthy family, but David was willing to be in a serious relationship with me, someone who's not exactly cute, so I could overlook that minor flaw. It was on our one-year anniversary that David proposed, saying, "Let's get married." I was shocked, having not expected a proposal so soon. But I had hoped to eventually be with David, so I happily accepted. Thank you. I'm so happy I met you, Linda. I'm really happy too. At that moment, I felt on top of the world, truly happy with David's proposal. It might have been the peak of my happiness. Because from that day, David's behavior towards me began to change dramatically. I hadn't realized it yet. The month after our engagement, we decided to move in together. David quickly bought a condo in a high-rise, and we began living there even before our marriage. Is it okay to live in such a nice place? Aren't the mortgage payments tough? Oh, the mortgage is fine. My family is rich. But in return, you'll need to handle all the household chores. I'll be coming home around 10 p.m. on weekdays, so I won't have time. Your company is pretty lenient, right? So, I'll leave the household stuff to you. David rattled this off in our new apartment. I was suddenly burdened with all the housework, and I was completely stunned. Moreover, his tone seemed sharper than usual. Usually, he spoke to me gently, never like now, quickly making demands. Half bewildered, I nodded, thinking, well, he's the future successor of Chain Corporation, so I guess he's busy. But a thorn-like feeling was already pricking at my heart. From that day, David's attitude changed rapidly. First, he would check every corner of the apartment as soon as he woke up. He couldn't stand any dirtiness, and if he found even a speck of dust, he'd lash out, "Hey, what's this dust? You skipped cleaning yesterday, didn't you?" I was dumbstruck and couldn't respond. I had vacuumed and wiped down the place just yesterday. There might be a bit of dust left. But there was David, glaring at me furiously. Really, you're useless. I thought you'd make a great housekeeper at least. Well, there's plenty of time for you to improve your skills. What? As I voiced my confusion, David quickly left for work. What was all this about? The kind David I knew was treating me like just a housekeeper. I felt a stir of turmoil in the depths of my heart, and I couldn't focus at work all day. Moreover, if I didn't have dinner ready and served by the time he came home, he would start yelling. Even trivial things he could do himself, he wouldn't be satisfied unless I did them. Even though my company is lenient, I often don't get home until about 7 p.m. After preparing meals and doing other chores, naturally, I had no time left for myself. Is this cohabitation really okay? A whirl of doubts in my mind turned into waves of great anxiety pressing on my heart. Maybe I had drawn a really bad lot after all. I finally realized how foolish I had been. But contrary to my feelings, David was steadily preparing for our marriage. One Friday night. David came home earlier than usual but still didn't help with the chores, instead telling me, "We're going to my parents' house this Sunday to announce our engagement." What? We had only been engaged for a month, so I was surprised. Typically, the woman's family is visited first for marriage introductions. Yet here we were, suddenly preparing to visit David's family, and I wasn't ready. Shouldn't we visit my parents first? You know, it's customary to visit the woman's family first, right? I tried to persuade David with this argument. However, he seemed unbothered and responded, "What? It doesn't matter. We're going to visit your family eventually anyway." But David's forceful approach left me with a flicker of unease. What would my parents think if they knew we visited his parents first? Would they trust a man who didn't respect the custom of visiting the bride's family first? Ignoring my concerns, David began to outline what to keep in mind during the visit. "My parents are strict, so don't mess up. Also, you'll quit your job after we marry because they believe a wife should not work if she isn't capable of managing household duties properly." David informed me as if it were obvious. This shocked me, and I asked, "What do you mean?" "Just what I said. Linda, you'll quit your job and become a homemaker. Lucky you, being with a rich son like me. You'll have an easy life," David said with a mocking smile. I was taken aback by this sudden demand. I haven't agreed to quit my job. I like my work, remember? I told you that when we met. I intend to keep working even after we're married. Determined not to be dictated to about my career, I confronted David with my true feelings. However, he took my protests lightly, responding with nonchalant nods, yeah. Whatever you say, but this is already decided." Too bad. David grabbed a bottle of sake from the table, poured himself a drink, and started sipping it with a flushed face. I realized then that arguing with David now was futile. If I married David, I would be forced to quit my job. This fact cast a dark shadow over my heart. With my unease unresolved, 2 days passed, and Sunday morning arrived. Reluctantly, I slipped into the black dress I had prepared. I applied makeup carefully enough to avoid looking unattractive, hoping the first impression would be decent. It would be the first time meeting my in-laws. Though I had heard they were strict, I hoped they would be more reasonable than David. I even wished they would stop David from forcing me to quit my job. David was humming tunes from the morning, eagerly preparing to leave. It seemed he was more excited about seeing his parents' reaction to me than introducing me to them. After getting ready, we immediately headed to David's parents' house. It was only 2 train stops away from our apartment, very close indeed. I wished I had more time to mentally prepare, but cruelly, the train reached our destination in just a few minutes. A 10-minute walk from the nearest station, David's parents' house stood impressively. It really looked like a small castle, and seeing it made me swallow hard. This house cost $1 million. Impressive, right? David boasted, puffing out his chest as he energetically opened the front door and entered, saying, "I'm home." I followed him inside and timidly said, "Excuse me for intruding." His parents were waiting in the living room and smiled at David, saying, "Welcome back." Then they turned to me and scrutinized me from head to toe, as if appraising my worth. "What's this? Quite an unattractive bride. I'd love to see what her parents look like." These were the first words David's parents said upon seeing me, and I couldn't help but exclaim, "What?" I had a bad feeling about this visit from the start. I had ignored the low likelihood that David's parents would be reasonable. But hearing these words of insult directed at me made me realize how foolish I had been. Right? I was shocked too when I first met her. She said she was self-conscious about her looks, but I never thought it'd be this bad. David unbelievably added. Was it possible that David had been mocking my appearance from the beginning? The kind responses he had given me when I first confessed my insecurities about my appearance were all lies. Thinking this, I felt so angry I could burst. There was no way I could go through with marrying David without saying something. I need to change this situation somehow. Determined, I quietly slipped my hand into my pocket and prepared to take a certain action. May I use the restroom? I asked his parents, who dismissively waved me away as if shooing a stray dog, saying, "Go ahead, quickly." Feeling humiliated, I stepped out into the hallway and headed towards what I assumed was the bathroom, pulling out my phone from my pocket. I called someone. She listened to my situation sympathetically, and I felt relieved after the call. After ending the call, I turned on the voice recorder on my phone and returned to the living room nonchalantly. Upon my return, David's parents insulted me again. "Where did you find such a woman? It's a shame. We were looking forward to meeting David's bride-to-be. She has to be introduced at the company, too. They'll make fun of her," his mother said with a smirk, covering her mouth with her hand, though her eyes weren't smiling. To them, I was merely the wife of the heir to the auto parts manufacturer, Company C. No doubt, introducing someone unattractive like me as their daughter-in-law was displeasing to them. Come on, that's a bit harsh. It doesn't matter what she looks like, you guys told me to catch someone useful. Besides, I plan to have Linda quit her job after we marry. She's really lucky, being with a rich guy like me. Is that so? But now that I think about it, appearances do matter. After all, she's going to be the face of our company. And with that face. At David's father's words, his mother let out a crude laugh. Who could have imagined being insulted to this extent? Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to their complaints. "Oh, please, come quickly, come quickly." As I silently wished this, the doorbell at David's house rang simultaneously. "Who is that? Did you order a delivery?" "Delivery? I haven't ordered anything recently." "Then who is it? Go check it out." Urged by his father, David went to the door and opened it. I heard David's voice asking, "Who are you?" followed by a confident, fearless reply, as someone entered the house. "Hey, you can't just..." David tried to stop the person, but they walked confidently into the living room. I saw the face of the newcomer and let out a sigh of relief. It was my mother, who had come right after I called her. "Hello, I'm the unattractive bride's mother," she said with a smile, greeting them without showing any anger, though I could tell she was very upset. "Oh, you are." David's parents' faces stiffened upon seeing my mother. "What's going on? Why is Linda's mother here suddenly, and why do you two look so shocked?" David was the only one confused by my mother's unexpected arrival. But the reason David's parents were frozen was not just because my mother had shown up unannounced, but because they recognized who she was. "What? Why? Is this some kind of prank?" David's parents' tone became slightly more polite, perhaps out of nervousness. "This is no prank," my mother replied calmly in front of the flustered in-laws. I rushed over because I heard that my daughter and her fiancé's parents were insulting her. "And wasn't it you who said you wanted to see the bride's parents?" Perhaps sensing the anger underlying her calm tone. David's parents gasped in shock. "What's going on here, Linda?" David, unable to follow the conversation, turned to me for clarification. To him, it must have seemed like my mother just showed up and his parents were merely surprised by her appearance. I took a deep breath and decided to reveal the truth. "Oh, you're meeting her for the first time? This is my mother, the CEO of auto manufacturer Alameda." I said it firmly, and David's face turned pale as he muttered, "Auto manufacturer Alameda? Could it be?" It seemed David finally grasped the situation. My mother's company is a major client of David's father's company. For them, she is their biggest client. My mother was celebrated as a beautiful CEO. She had appeared on television several times, so many would recognize her as the CEO of Alameda Auto. Despite David working at his father's company, he hadn't recognized that the CEO of Alameda Auto was my mother. "What? A's CEO is Linda's mother? That can't be, she doesn't look like you at all." I get it, this must be some strategy to surprise us, right? Why would you go to the trouble of having the CEO come here? A flustered David accused me of lying. While dumbfounded, I sighed and answered. I don't have such connections. This woman truly is my mother. I take after my father. Don't you think you judge people too much by their appearance? Seriously? David and his parents, who had been relentlessly calling me unattractive, probably never imagined my mother would be so beautiful. Moreover, once they realized she was the CEO of a major client, their attitudes suddenly became extremely deferential. How funny. To think that the CEO of Alameda Auto was Ms. Linda's mother. Had we known, we would have welcomed you properly from the start. That's right. We never intended to fight with you. Although it's late, please have a seat. My wife will make some tea for you right now. David's parents, who suddenly became very formal, urged my mother and me to sit on a luxurious sofa. However, my mother did not budge from her spot. Smiling pleasantly, she said, "Thank you, but I prefer standing." Her calm tone and smiling face somehow gave David and his parents an indescribable sense of dread. Their bodies visibly began to shake. Furthermore, I have nothing to discuss with you. We've decided to end our business with your company as of today. My mother's demeanor tightened, taking on the protective stance of a parent. Her announcement to end the business relationship shocked everyone present, including me. End the business relationship? Please, don't say that. We hope to continue our partnership. That's right. Your company will surely suffer without our business, won't it? The three of them frantically attempted to negotiate. But my mother's expression only grew more severe. Finally, she dropped her pleasant facade and spoke in a lower voice. No, the decision to stop business is final. I no longer wish to associate with people who belittle my daughter as unattractive or worse. We did not mean to belittle her. Come on, don't say such outrageous things. David and his mother protested, their arguments sounding incredibly insincere to me. I stepped forward, addressing David and his parents boldly. Unfortunately, I have evidence here that you've been mocking me. Evidence? David's father looked puzzled, tilting his head. I made sure he saw as I pulled out my smartphone from my pocket. Then, I started playing the voice recorder audio that I had recorded earlier in their home. Upon hearing their own disparaging voices, the three of them looked at me in utter disbelief. What does this mean? David shouted at me. It means exactly what you've heard. Since you've been mocking me and my mother, I could not just stay silent and marry into your family. I am calling off our engagement. What? David was clearly not expecting me to break off our engagement. He was visibly shocked and lost his balance. It's too late for that now. You're supposed to marry into our family. Yes, that's right. It's very fortunate for us to have the daughter of the CEO of Alameda Auto as our daughter-in-law. Our future is secure. His mother suddenly switched to a more cheerful demeanor, as if trying to embrace the situation. Disgusted by their inability to understand, I refuted my mother-in-law's words. No. As I said before, I will not marry David. I don't want to become family with people who belittle me. If you don't accept the cancellation of our engagement and the termination of business with your company, I will upload the recording to the internet. I'm sure that would send your credibility and stock prices plummeting. My calm but angry statement turned their faces pale. Please, don't do that. If we goes under, our family will be lost. Yeah, that would be a disaster. His parents chimed in, imagining a future where Company C collapses, starting to tremble. So, will you agree to cancel the engagement and the business deal? I pressed David further. He stuttered again, that's still seemingly trying to resist. Even now, at this point, was he still trying to put up some fight? I sighed heavily in frustration. What's with your indecisive attitude? The main reason I want to call off our engagement is because you ridiculed my appearance. And now, knowing your company might be in jeopardy, you beg pathetically. Don't you have anything to say to me? And to you, my in-laws, judging people by their looks, I don't want to be part of a family like that. I'm especially disgusted by how quickly you changed your tune once you found out my mother is the CEO of Alameda Auto. I will definitely not marry David. Having my mother's support allowed me to vent my feelings openly. David and his parents could only stare as I spoke. Sorry, my bad. But think about it, marrying a rich guy like me would make your life easier, right? David's last plea seemed to assume I was only interested in money. I clenched my fist and shouted back. Unfortunately, I'm not interested in money. My mother runs her company, and I have a respectable job myself. I don't need more money. I'd rather find someone who truly values me. Don't ever contact me again. Goodbye. With that, I turned on my heel and left David's house with my mother. We ignored his cries of please don't spread the recording. What I do with that recording is my prerogative. I never want to see David's face again. My mother and I exchanged looks and sighed in relief. As I declared, I ended the engagement with David. It turned out he had been dating to quickly get married. He thought an unattractive woman like me would be easy to convince. He was just looking for a convenient woman to do housework, making me a perfect target. But unfortunately for David, I was not the person he thought I was. I take pride in my work and have no intention of marrying just to be demeaned. Thus, his plan miserably failed. My mother indeed ended the business with David's father's company. Without a major client like ours, it saw its management deteriorate. Public trust plummeted, and the stock prices dropped significantly. Moreover, it was discovered that my mother-in-law had been embezzling company funds. She thought a little here and there wouldn't matter, but over the years, those little bits accumulated into a sum too significant to ignore. Now, with the business situation worsening, the amount of money my mother-in-law had embezzled was putting immense pressure on the company. But that's not all. David and his father had always treated their subordinates poorly. With the deteriorating management, employee dissatisfaction exploded, leading to a wave of resignations. Ultimately, with their future in jeopardy, David quickly sought refuge by moving to another company. It was almost a family-run business, likely aiming to prevent a collective collapse. However, David's condescending attitude was quickly spotted by interviewers at other companies, and he struggled to find employment. In the meantime, their company continued its decline, and there was no position left for David to return to. Now, still burdened with the mortgage payments for our former high-rise condo, David is probably scrambling to make ends meet with part-time jobs. I never needed to release that recording situation to deteriorate this far. The significant impact of Alameda Auto's withdrawal and the cost of angering my mother became starkly evident. While it's unfortunate for David, he essentially reaped what he sowed. I can't help but think he deserves to suffer for his actions. As for myself, I decided to undergo cosmetic surgery. It was a bit scary, but inspired by stories of actresses who transformed beautifully through surgery, frequently discussed in the media, I took the plunge. After the surgery, I hardly recognized myself. I thought I looked as pretty as my mother did in her youth. With this new face, I feel more vibrant than ever. At work, a male colleague from the sales department has even asked me out for drinks. I don't know what the future holds, but with a fresh start and a new me, I'm ready to give my all to both my career and my love life.